monster cables that you needed back in the day. Couldn't wedge them on hard enough.
So we're going to be able to see our stream up here. And we'll see if anybody is actually in the chat. And then we'll put on this one. So it's not like super fucking weird.
Dang, look at this. So it's kind of a delay. What is it, a 7-second delay?
I don't know how many, but it is.
In the radio world, and even in TV, it's delayed by, I believe, 7 seconds for instant editing. You know, somebody drops F-bombs or whatever it is, or
right.
The occasional nip slip on a wardrobe malfunction.
I think it's a little less than that, because we can even test it out. Okay, there we are. Turn this well. Here, talking to the mic.
Hello. Is it coming through?
It's more than that. It's probably how long was that?
10 seconds, maybe.
I need to turn this all the way down. I think that's all the way down. I'm gonna wear these just for a little bit, just to make sure that our microphones are
Yeah.
working properly. I need to get 2 pairs. I wish I had.
Are the kids asleep?
Yeah. Wife's reading. They're doing something like that. Actually,
Where's Sarah crocheting?
she's reading. Reading her shoppers.
Cross stitching, needlepoint.
Right.
But you need to drag your keyboard, not the keyboard,
Yeah.
does it help if it goes over there? Be a little more slack. You know what I mean?
I really just want to make sure that we can talk somewhat comfortably away from these mics. That's the only reason I'm really testing it.
Yeah.
Keep it about right there.
Right here?
Yeah, I would say 2 or 3 inches from your
Okay.
lips. Yeah. Even
Closer?
Yo. Where you were was fine, I think.
Okay.
I think that'll be good.
Okay.
We don't want it to get too close.
Current events.
Just for your awareness, so in the bottom left is the number of viewers, and I think it's registering as 2 right now because that's 1, and that's 2.
Call me dumb. How do people find it? You or any podcast? Like where?
Yeah.
It's not like is it a radio station, AM, FM, where you just kind of keep tuning on stuff. But what are you tuning through?
Well, this one. So we're live streaming right now on Twitch.
Okay.
Right, which is a platform that's more for, like, I would say, gaming and like soft porn, right?
Sweet.
Where the majority of gamers that you see out there playing their games and talking to other gamers and doing chat and all that kind of stuff, they're on
nude.
Twitch.
While they're half nude.
Yes, exactly. And then you have the girls on there that just, have like monstrous boobs and show everything but their nipples, and because you can't go nude on Twitch. So it's really
what is nude?
What is nude these days? So we got that going for us, and then the platform that I use that's on that screen over there, it can simultaneously stream to multiple places. Yeah. So like what I want to do, and I couldn't do this time, is I want to be able to stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time, right? And the only thing with YouTube is that you got to request it, and then you don't have access to stream live until 24 hours after you request it, which I just requested it like 20 minutes ago. Okay. So I was like, oh, fuck.
So you're going to wait a day.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but still, I'm going to record this, and then I'm going to upload it to the YouTube channel, because I made a YouTube channel called Roger That.
That's dope.
So we got that. And then, like, in terms of where do people find podcasts, I mean, the majority of the time you're going to find them just your podcast, Apple iPhone.
What about MySpace?
Yeah. That's still relevant, isn't it? What was the dude's name?
What was the guy's name?
Tom. MySpace Tom.
MySpace
Everyone was
Tom.
friends with Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of our era. But what do we got going on in here? So we see, and this is going to get weird. So we have the two cameras, or we have one camera for each of us that's directly on us, and then we have the one up top, which that one auto focuses just via iPhone AI kind
I
of.
was gonna say it's gotta be an AI thing.
Yeah, so I think it's going towards motion and voice. So that one's gonna zoom in, zoom out, pan to one of us, pan to two of us. Maybe it'll work well, maybe it won't. I
The
don't
more
know.
you talk, does it zoom in more and more and more and more and more?
I don't know.
To the point where it's like in your
Yeah, in your mouth. But yeah, I'm a huge podcast guy. I listen to shit ton of podcasts. I absolutely love podcasting. This would be one of my dreams to actually have like a real podcast that was successful. It would be so
Especially if you
fucking
can
cool.
monetize it, man.
Oh yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
Sit back in your PJs all day.
dude, I mean, honestly, for the first couple of years, even I wouldn't even care about the money. But if that could be the case, hell yeah, hell yeah.
Wouldn't be too bad.
I know,
Come
but there's
think
too
about
many
it.
kids these days thinking they're gonna be YouTube stars. So you know
Well,
what
don't
I'm
we have
saying?
one living up the block? Who was the guy? I thought he was a gamer. The one that bought Batsner's old house. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
He's looks like the castle. It's got the
on top of the hill.
not the kind of towards the top of the hill.
Oh, I don't
Here on
know.
the main drag. I think it was like 27 or 28.
Oh, really?
He bought it just a few years ago. I want to say 21 is when he bought it.
I don't even know who that is.
Check on a Saturday night. You'll see like the C Series Beamer or C Series Benzos, the WRX Subarus. He's got his house all lit up. I think he's a pro gamer.
Really?
I'm pretty positive.
That
It
would
was
be
the talk
cool.
of the neighborhood when he came in because everyone's like, he got some 20-something who just games all night. And he bought a $950,000 house at the time.
Nice.
So
I want to meet him now.
Well, I mean, double check. I could be dead wrong. Maybe he's 65.
Do you know his last name?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I never met him. But apparently his neighbors had to help him out because he doesn't. He's not too familiar with taking out trash and some other stuff the first few months. It was like sort of a foreign concept to him.
oh, that's funny.
So, but like I said, you know which house I'm talking about?
No, I mean, there's the guy that just is building the pool house. Is it by him?
Yeah, it's just a couple doors down because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, again, I believe he's a gamer. He's the one whose house it has a curved front with the cone.
Okay.
It does. It looks like a castle tower in the front.
Yeah,
it's all
I think I know
smooth,
what you're
yeah,
talking about.
That house.
Right next to the house, it has all those dogs.
How
Is it
many?
that one? They have like two dogs that are constantly like running out to the street.
Okay.
I only know that because we walk our dogs past there sometimes. But
No.
so for those that might be listening, not now, but might be listening, checking us out in the future. Tim and I are neighbors. We live in the same cul-de-sac. That's how we got to know one another.
Unfortunate for him.
Yeah, right. That's true.
His loss. Property values decline.
Exactly. And our subdivision is called Rogers Glen. That's kind of where the Roger that came from. I thought it was a cool name, especially since we're always talking shit about this subdivision and all the bullshit that goes on in it. So
What
I
about the
still
HOA?
think it's a fun name.
What
Yeah.
about the HOA though?
Yeah, the HOA, which I was a member of a year ago. Thankfully, not anymore. Thank God.
God forbid they shut this thing down too.
Oh yeah, right. In the bylaws.
That says no podcast. I'll make an amendment that says no bylaw.
Bring it up at the next meeting, man. Bring it up. But like I said, my dream to be doing podcasting. Listen to tons of podcasts. One of my favorite podcasts out there right now. I don't know if you know it, Tim, but I love listening to Timcast IRL. It's this like conservative Republican.
Okay.
He calls himself a centrist, but his name is Tim Pool, and he has a podcast. It's every single day, Monday through Friday. I think it's like 2 hours long. He has on 3 or 4 guests every night, and they do current events. And then they have this another channel that's for social wars. He sells tons of shit. They're putting up physical locations in West Virginia. But that's one of my favorite. I listen to that podcast like every day almost, and not necessarily because I like Tim Pool all that much. I mean, he's okay, but the guests that he has on the show are really, really good, and the show itself is edited fantastic. But from an editing standpoint, I'd like to get to kind of that point at some time if this would ever go well. But anyways, Tim, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are, where you're from, what you do, all that great stuff.
Oh boy. All started with a boy in a dream. So my name is Tim. Do I have to disclose last names?
No.
Perfect.
No.
Let's go with Johnson. Yeah, so Tim, I live, like I said, right here next to Adam, just here in the cul-de-sac of Rogers Glen. And been here for about 7 years. Built the house, beautiful home, nice homes in this neighborhood. But a couple of these homes are monsters, and it makes me feel like I'm living on Skid Row. But needless to say, I am in the pharmaceutical industry. So for those listening and maybe paying attention, you either love me or hate me, or you have a lot of opinions about that industry yourself. And I've been doing that for about 2 decades plus. But like I said, it's been a very good career, and have had a lot of fun doing it.
So what do you do in pharmaceuticals?
I basically fly around a lot in my current role. I have one account that I cover nationally. I won't disclose the name of it, probably for some confidentiality purposes, but the one account that I cover nationally happens to be one of the biggest accounts in the country, and for that reason, I'm always on a plane or in a hotel, and most of what I deal with is ensuring that our flagship brands land on formulary for that health system. In addition to that, anything that would be tied to a pathway or a protocol. Basically, standardized medicine is the best way to put it.
So you're a salesman in a way.
Commercial side, as we call it, but yeah, sales at the end of the day. My role is leadership without authority. I don't know if my company would trust me enough to actually have authority, but at least they put me in a leadership role. So it's a small baby step, perhaps. But truth be told, I think I thrive better in that type of a capacity as opposed to having direct reports. Maybe some would think otherwise. A lot of people in my company seem to like me, or at least they pretend to. But either way, I enjoy what I do. I kind of sit on an island in one regard, but I have a lot of touch points internally. And the last time I checked, it was kind of funny. I did a tally. There was about 300 people in my company that have some sort of connection back to the account that I cover nationally. So with that in mind, there's basically about 300 people that look to me for whether it's the guidance, the counsel, direction. Not to say that what I say goes. Of course, I get air cover from some senior leaders and others in the company. But, at the end of the day, servant leadership is probably the best way to sum it up. I sound a little bit textbook, but that's truth.
Right on, right on. And for those of you watching, we are located in Wisconsin, right outside Milwaukee, New Berlin, Wisconsin. So that's where we're hosting this from.
Yeah.
And like Tim said, we live, right near Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is one of the largest Republican counties, maybe the largest Republican county in all of Wisconsin.
It's gotta be.
And where we live is pretty
red,
and pretty, at least in our subdivision and over here, pretty wealthy as well. We're not, located in somewhere where it's just mansions up and down the street or anything like that, but we all do pretty well for ourselves, live in, nice homes, nice large homes. And
blessed.
Yes, blessed, we'll say it that way.
But again, Adam, he's not, because he's got to live next to me. So, he keeps his holy cards and rosary close to him every night.
That's right. And for other reasons. But yeah, and my name is Adam. I currently am unemployed, which feels actually awesome.
By choice.
By choice, yes. I have been in the tech industry for 20 plus years. A lot of it just sales. I was a sales operations manager. I was a design engineering technician for quite some time, a program manager, an account manager, certified project manager, Scrum, you name it. From a program project management perspective, I've done it. Did some consulting and contracting for a company out in California, was ultimately hired on with them as their director of customer success and later as their director of marketing and strategic partnerships. Yeah, well, the actual title, it was such a fucking dumb title. It was Director of Strategic Partnerships and Alliances. That was the title, that long. So
So my first thought is, what does that mean?
it was bullshit. I mean, what it was really is I was doing the director of marketing role, and I was also taking point on some of our largest partners slash suppliers being their main guy, like their account manager. We weren't selling to them, but we were working with them.
Okay.
So we treat our partners as we treat our customers. And in that regard, I was the, director of strategic partnerships, essentially.
Equity.
Yes.
You were like broker,
Yes.
kind of.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
Gotcha.
trying to make deals, trying to put things together, make things happen,
Sure.
that kind of thing. But I just got done with that end of November. So I've been out in the real world, in the crazy world, for about 4 months, and now I am going back to law school, applying at Marquette, applying at Madison out here. I probably wouldn't go to Madison even if I got it, but trying to go to law school, trying to do a 2 year degree, get done quickly with that, and then I want to go into corporate law and mainly focus around tech and AI. So that's who I am. Tim and I talked about doing this podcast, and we want to focus really around current events. I think current events and/or anything there is to talk about.
Absolutely.
Right. So if our conversation leads us astray wherever we'd like to go, let's not try to go anywhere. Let's talk about anything and everything there is to talk about.
Well, I can think of 2 current events right off the bat.
Let's talk
I
about.
lost a couple $100 tonight playing cards. That's a terrible event. I mean, I don't know. There's no comments on it yet, but anyway, so it was a bad night at the office when it comes to playing cards. And I guess a shout out to Oakland for knocking out Kentucky. That was an upset tonight here in the NCAA. I don't follow much of.
I'm not a watcher.
Same here. College sports really doesn't get me. I'm sort of an observer or sort of a passive person that'll watch and pay attention to some stuff. I did graduate from Marquette, so I can at least maybe look forward to them playing tomorrow. But either way, I guess you could say current events, right? So there was an upset tonight here in the NCAA, and for those that probably had Kentucky, that's a bracket buster from the jump. So
were they a 1 seed?
Three versus 14, and
okay.
Poor Tyler Hero, local boy from only about 8 or 9 minutes away, but he's maybe just wiping the tears from his eyes with those $100 bills. He plays with the Heat now, And,
oh, is that right?
You know Tyler? No. Yeah, so Tyler Hero, he got drafted. Oh boy, maybe it was 4 years ago or so, 5 years ago, and he lived just right, not far from here. He went to Whitnall High School.
Oh, really?
So he ended up playing 1 year in Kentucky, and then he got drafted by the Heat.
Last year?
No, a few years back. I think this is his 4th season because his new contract kicks in next year, and unfortunately, he'll only be making about $30 million a year next year. So, at the ripe age of 24 or 25, but
nice.
I'm sure he doesn't maybe care too much about Kentucky losing tonight. He's got enough money to, like I say, wipe those tears. So
yeah. $30 million a year, not all that bad for shooting hoops.
Not bad for putting the ball in the hoop.
Is he a white dude?
Yes, he is.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
He is. Yeah.
Wow.
Boy Wonder, I think is the nickname that they had for him in high school, something like
Shout
that.
out.
Crazy part is I used to see him at the Princeton Club. And that's
really?
not a huge tangent about Tyler Hero, but, I'd always work out there before I went to Lifetime. And shout out to Lifetime. Great place, by the way, to work out. Princeton Club's nice, too. And Tyler Hero would be there with his shooting coaches. He'd have 2 or 3 people with him. They'd have all the cones set up, and he was always getting in his reps. And this was even during the summer, right before he went to Kentucky. So it was interesting to see, but talk about automatic. I mean, just the muscle memory and watching somebody shoot repeatedly over and over, making shots. It made it look so easy. And it was no wonder he went pro.
No.
Yeah. But anyways.
And you follow NBA big, don't you?
I used to, truth be told. The political side of sports, I think, has gotten to be just overdone, and it's a turnoff.
What do you mean by political side of sports?
Boy, you could throw out every adjective.
Are you
right?
like starting with the Kaepernick?
Between that, the woke stuff, of course, the China component with Nike and just the aspects of, I think you could look at it as sports has now crossed over into, it's also a platform for everybody to just speak on what they want, say what they believe in, which is fine. I also hearken back to, it's not like I can do that in my job, number one. And number two, the players themselves, look, we could talk to the ends of how much money they make and, just, be quiet and play your sport. People just want to be entertained. End of day, I don't want to have my mind focused on something that's aggravating me. I want to be entertained. And I think that's what sports does. It historically has always been one of those sort of binding, components here in society. It doesn't matter where you sit on the spectrum. You just want to see somebody win, or maybe you want to see the opponent lose because you can't stand the other team. The last thing, at least I know I want, is to have people so outspoken that becomes more of the storyline rather than just the sport itself.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. I mean, even when everything happened with Rogers and him coming out over the COVID scandal or COVID stuff, I should say, and all of his ayahuasca trips and everything else, is like you can't not watch football without talking about that shit, and it's kind of annoying actually. I'd rather just sit there and watch football.
That's just it. I mean, people literally they tune in to tune out. It's
Right.
probably the best way you could put it when people want to watch anything, and that goes for. I mean, really, it's not just sports. I think it transcends across reality TV, among a number of other factors. People just want to tune out, and unfortunately, so much of the political stances, ideologies, and frankly beliefs, it's just packed in. It's buried. It's now almost. I'm not even sure what the word is exactly at the moment, but it's interchangeable in many ways. That's all.
Yeah. Speaking of political, that's one thing we like to talk about, politics.
Yeah.
Why don't you let everyone know where you are on the political scale? What do you call yourself? What do you believe in?
So the easiest way to put this is, sadly, I'm not a fan of the 550 people in Washington. I don't care what letter they have after their name. I would vote Republican, absolutely, just because that's always the lesser of two evils in my eyes. But truth be told, again, I I look at it as most even Republicans are not even conservative in nature. They're not, and you know, you look at the way that this country has moved and head in a number of, I would say, less than satisfactory directions over even the last 5 or 10 years. You could look at the last 20 plus even. And the divisions in society, unfortunately, are so deep right now that it's unfortunate because there's not even one single thing, at least I think it's hard to find one single thing, where you could look at the majority of the country and say, yeah, they or we can get behind that. All too often it's 50-50, right? And in my side of things, I just look at it as I'm a conservative and I don't put an R or a D necessarily next to that. It's just flat out conservative. But by virtue of parties, yeah, vote Republican.
Have you
Make sense?
have you ever voted Democrat?
No. Although I was a huge fan of Ross Perot. Still am to this day.
Really?
The guy was right, by the way.
Before we get into that, or if we ever do, did you grow up? How did you grow up? What was your family like?
That's the funny part. Dad's side, diehard Democrat. Mom's side, you could argue they're, aligned to Republican, but they don't speak a lot of it. It's not a lot of politic talk on their end on that side of the family, but it really is split.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Milwaukee, North Side.
North side of Milwaukee?
Mhm.
Ghetto?
Wasn't a good area. Over by Sherman Park, not too far, about a couple blocks off. And just my mother and I, when I was young, my parents split, and it was just my mother and I left in that neighborhood. We lived in the lower level of a duplex, and the neighborhood went from bad to worse pretty quick. Fast forward about 5 years, finally got out, and then at middle school ish, ended up moving out to Franklin, safe neighborhood, right? But mother struggled. She didn't have a lot, so I slept on a couch for about a year or two until she had enough money to get a 2 bedroom apartment. So my motivation in life has always been go get yours. Do it the right way, right? Earn, work hard, save, invest, all the right things. And that equation in math pretty much works as long as you're willing to apply yourself.
Right.
But after all was, said and done, I ended up going to college at Marquette, engineering, later got an MBA, And I can say at the ripe age of 30, I bought my mom a condo in Franklin.
Nice, good
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Yeah, and you're kind of unique from my perspective, just because doesn't seem like you're a party dude. I never saw you
No,
drink a beer yet. Never saw you smoke a cigarette, do anything,
no.
nothing like that. What set you on that course?
I actually had cancer as a child.
You did.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
had leukemia when I was a kid. Uh, it's not one of those things where I broadcast, even though I'm broadcasting it right now. But for the sake of just good health, it's not something that
As I sit here and smoke right next to
right.
you.
It's
Sorry,
all
buddy.
good. It's the balance of yin and yang over here. The aspect of good health has always just played a factor in my lifestyle. How can I put it? Even in college, wasn't into partying, wasn't into drinking. I had 3 beers my whole life, never even finished them. I've had some other stuff, harder alcohol a few other times in life, but never really gravitated to it. Just doesn't taste good to me, and that's really it. Never tried a cigarette, never tried a drug. I guess I got the liver and lungs of a 10-year-old.
Interesting. Interesting. See, that's unique. You don't meet all that many people that never drank, never smoke, nothing like that in their life. I mean, my brother and sister-in-law are both that way, but they were Olympic athletes and stuff. I kind of expect that from them. But
Speed skaters, right?
well, they both were speed skaters.
Okay.
Yeah, she never made it to the Olympics. He made it to the Olympics, but did not medal. That's always what they talk about, if people medaled or not. He made it to the Olympics, didn't medal. Although shout out to Ryan, because he's still
Still
like
impressive.
number one on the hairstyles for the Olympics. Like
Is he really?
they held like a Twitter poll of who had the best hairstyle ever in the Olympics, and he had a
No medals for that.
shaved head. No medals for that. Maybe Twitter medals. But he had a shaved head and the United States flag, colored into his head. So
It's funny you mention that because when their daughter, who often comes over with Kenna, and plays with my daughter Ava, she was talking about that. I don't know how it somehow she ended up bringing up her dad's hairstyle, and she
yeah,
said, "Look it up." And I remember it now. Look, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. So they always bring that up. That's pretty funny. But no, shout out to Ryan, and Heidi, good, really, really good people. So, all right. Well, in terms of my political beliefs, as we go along here, somewhat aligned with Tim. I would call myself a conservative Republican slash libertarian, a little bit more libertarian than Republican. And I would also say that I've flip flopped throughout the course of my life. I mean, my wife will always bring this up over and over and over, but I voted for Obama his first term, if you can
Okay.
believe that.
I can believe it. A lot of people did.
Yeah, I mean, I hope and change, right, man? That's what I was all about,
Pretty
hope and change.
charismatic too. Can you blame it? I mean,
I
kind of like a
know,
Clinton of sorts, in that regard.
right, right. And but after that, um, I got really. This is when I really started really first getting into politics. Because politics, when I was growing up, I wouldn't be able to tell you if my mother was a Democrat or a Republican. Same with my dad. I wouldn't even know. They never talked politics. It was never part of our household or
Same here.
anything. So, I mean, I don't know if that's something that's just changed in the U.S. throughout, the 40 years that I've been alive. But it seems as though, 20 years ago and before, there was so little talk about politics, whether it be in my family or at
Absolutely.
holidays or whatever it is. And now it's just, you cannot get away from it. And here we are talking even more about it,
And there's
right?
divisions in families.
Oh,
They
yeah.
hate the holidays because
Oh,
of that
yeah.
stuff. You can't
Yeah.
even split the turkey or the corn souffle without some.
Um,
I mean, you mentioned libertarian, and in many ways, if you were to sum up my beliefs, just kind of bucket them into categories, it actually probably more aligns with that than anything else.
yeah.
We can squabble over nuances in society, and it gets back to just division of groups and then subdivisions, and do you fit in this little category or box? And frankly, as long as borders are secure, economy is healthy, hopefully maybe we can do something about the debt, which is just people talk about trillions like it's nothing. I mean, nobody can fathom even a trillion, much less 35 trillion. Foreign policy, the big stuff. That's security. That's the conservative aspect. Most social issues, truth be told, for me, when I say I don't care, it's not because I don't care to voice an opinion. It just there's bigger stuff to fry out there, and there are much bigger issues.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, it's, to me, just let people be people for the most part, as long as the government's not in my business, and strip the federal government as much power as it possibly can have. Leave it to the states like it originally should have been with the forefathers that founded this, beautiful country 250 some years ago. And that's pretty much it.
That's what you had said is kind of why I, grew up labeling myself a Democrat at first, because the majority of it was over social issues. And as I was growing up, it was like Democrat good and like people, Republican bad and like money.
Yeah,
right.
And they're going to push Granny off the cliff and cut her Medicare.
Right. And so it was like, just simple stuff. I mean, this wasn't the main thing, but like gays to be married. Okay, I didn't care. Go ahead, do what you want to do, right? And in terms of the government, right? And so it was like, but that's not a really great example, but it was more so personal liberty, personal freedom, that kind of thing. And it was like, I guess I'm a Democrat, right? And then I got older, got a little smarter, started really getting into politics and what each side was about and policies and et cetera, and eventually flipped. But I was a huge Ron Paul supporter when Ron Paul was making his way through with the revolution, right? The revolution of love. We went out to a Ron Paul rally in Madison, Wisconsin, which was fucking awesome. A couple of years, well, a long time ago now. But I went from like Ron Paul, then eventually I used to have to drive a ton to get to work every day. I lived on the east side, had to drive all the way out here. So like 45-minute drive there and back, and I would listen to like talk radio all day because I hate listening to music in the car.
Same here.
And maybe I just brainwashed myself by listening to so much talk radio. I became a conservative, but I went from Ron Paul to all the way to the Republican side, and now I'm I don't care what I call myself. That's just kind of where I'm at. Libertarian, Republican. I care more about personal freedoms, more about personal liberties. I want smaller government. I'd like anything that could possibly be handled at the state level to be handled at the state level rather than federal.
Absolutely.
The more local, the better. And that's kind of my stance on things.
Yeah, Reagan once famously said, hopefully I don't screw up this quote, but I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Something along those lines, right?
Reagan said a lot of things.
He said a lot of things too, right? But, be aware of those kinds of words. And, sadly, again, you've got a federal government that has taken it upon themselves through congressional, call it aggressive pushes, and coupled with using the Supreme Court as sort of a weapon in their lawmaking to take control of as much as possible over time, and they continue to do so, and it's never enough. And that's the scary part. It's never enough. And, as much as we've had freedom, it can also be taken away pretty quickly. And unfortunately, a lot of people, I think, are willing to cash in that freedom for the handouts, entitlements, among many other things. And it's not to begrudge anybody that needs that helping hand. It's not any of that. But, Rush Limbaugh once famously said, too, it's, people love Santa Claus.
Right.
They like free stuff.
Who doesn't? Well, to get into one of these issues that's somewhat related and going on right now, we've been talking about it for a week already. We just talked about it at the party the other night, but let's talk a little bit about the TikTok ban. Man, what's your take on this TikTok ban? As Nancy Pelosi called it, the tic-tac-toe ban, or whatever the heck that idiot said.
She's also, Nancy Pelosi, God.
Follow her stock trades, though. Shout out to Nancy Pelosi and her stock trades.
Her and her husband.
Right.
It's amazing how they get 10x every year in terms of wealth gain.
Better than Buffett.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Clearly, I must have the wrong kind of advisor. But TikTok. So I look at it as whatever you fill in the blank with, TikTok in this case. Banning it, in my heart of hearts, is dumb. It's and I don't even use any social media. That's the other thing. So aside from being a non-drinker and somebody who didn't really party, I have no social media.
None.
I'm even doing this then. But
none at all.
No, I have LinkedIn.
You have LinkedIn. You don't have Facebook.
No, I have no Facebook, no Insta.
Have you ever?
Nothing. Zero. Zilch.
You've never had in your life either?
I'm a ghost.
Wow.
Legit, I'm a ghost in that way, I guess. I must be behind the times. But the point is with TikTok, I'm in my heart of hearts, who is the federal government to just ban something like that? Because they said, and I understand the national security aspect and whatnot. I do believe that TikTok is a problem for a lot of reasons, and the cultural rot that exists right now because of social media and the levels of dopamine that are just firing on all cylinders as people scroll through and get their news and they watch videos of people doing bottle flips or dance moves or whatever they do. And it's the same thing with your Instagrams and everything else, your Twitters. It really, again, it all contributes to the cultural rot. It's just unfortunate that these platforms have provided probably more problems than being helpful or solution oriented.
You think that's true? You think
What's
they're
that?
providing more problems than they are helpful? There's people that learn a ton from
Totally.
TikTok, you know?
From what I hear, yes. Keep in mind, I'm not an avid user. I look at it as the level of influence that people are so susceptible to in terms of what they pay attention to, and then all of a sudden they are dead set on whatever mindset, again, ideology, thought process, and it makes me wonder, does this help more than hurt?
But you know why this whole TikTok ban started, right? It all got kicked off after September 7th attack, and there's the
Yes.
Israeli-Palestine
Yeah,
conflict, and apparently TikTok and the CCP was, changing the algorithm a little bit to make or influence young U.S. citizens to support Palestine over Israel.
Right.
And that's what got the red side completely, jazzed up, and then got Democrats jazzed up in the same. And now we have an 80% vote of people wanting to ban TikTok all over this Palestinian persuasion, we'll call it. But this is kind of the scary part to me, truly, about TikTok, because this is a hard one for me. I'm really undecisive still on this one, but this is the hard part for me. The U.S. comes out and basically says via that House vote that we're going to ban TikTok somehow, right? And 2 days later, on the TikTok app, you open it, you get a push notification from TikTok saying, U.S. is going to ban TikTok. Call your representatives right now to change.
Yeah,
right?
I heard about that, yes.
So you have literally the Chinese Communist Party
Influencing internally here in the U.S.
sending you notifications to go and change policy in America, and we all are supposed to be okay with that.
That's the thing, is
that's like invasion.
Completely. And in that regard, I'm all for the banning of it. I am doing, I should say, my view though still stands back and says, who is the federal government to just ban a social media platform? Because that then sets precedent. And once you establish precedent, what's the next in line to get banned? And who determines what is considered, national security or threat? Because unfortunately, the 550 people in Washington, again, seem to determine this on their beliefs, and that's not really the way it should be.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the argument that everyone's been making for the last week and a half is, is this going to be the next, what was the bill right after 9/11? Patriot Act. Is this going to be the next Patriot Act, right? Where it just 2 years later it gets used to shut down X or Facebook or whatever it may be, right? Which, okay, yes, I agree with. I think that almost every bill that's passed has language that is vague, and the government could overstep their reach with anything.
Oh, ambiguity.
Right? Yeah, I mean, they try. I think they write ambiguity in on purpose.
Oh, completely.
Right?
This is by design.
Yeah, definitely by design. But at the same time, how do you truly solve this problem? I mean, if you could have the ideal situation where you ban not TikTok itself, but you ban the CCP from influencing and gathering data.
Right.
I mean, those are the two big things, influencing, gathering data. How do you write a bill that bans those two things specifically? Or why can't we write a bill that says the CCP cannot gather data and cannot,
Right.
and period, right? And it's 2 sentences and that's it.
The question I would have is, how do you execute that though? I'm not a techie person that way, so I think to myself, how do you stifle it? How do you put a lid on it?
Well, the way that the bill's even written right now is that if it gets voted on and approved, it will be pulled off the app platform, the Apple platform, the App Store, right? And so essentially what it's saying is that TikTok can't be hosted. Hosted is the word they use in the United States, meaning people like Apple can't have it on their App Store. Google Plus would have to pull it from their Google Play Store, right? But you could always go to the internet and go www.tiktok.whatever and go and watch TikTok. And if you have an Android phone, you can always go and download, from the internet, this package that would install a TikTok app on your phone. You couldn't do that on Apple because Apple's more locked down, unless you jailbreak or some shit. But even then, like, you can't ban stuff on the internet. We don't do that here, right?
Yeah, that's
So even if this passes, individuals could still download it on their Android phones and play with it all day, right? But what they're banning is hosting it outside of the U.S. or hosting it, in China essentially. But again, that's really hard too, because then you become, well, who's the host? Is it Apple in the App Store? Is it Verizon because they're passing the information? Is it AT&T? Is it who's the host, right? But it's such to me, it's such a silly conversation. And the one thing that I haven't been able to get answered by anyone, or just don't understand, is that why can't we write bills as simple as this is exactly what we want? It's 3 sentences, done.
yeah.
How do you enforce it? Well, how do you enforce any law? Right? I mean, how does the federal government enforce any law? It's going to be monetarily. You're going to get hit with fines if you start, if you're Verizon and you're hosting it, if you're Apple hosting it, if you're whoever and you're hosting it, you're going to get hit with financial, financial punishment, we'll say. But I would lean right now to not have this bill passed, just because I do not want it having more power than what it should have.
That's just it. It's for as much as I don't care for the idea of TikTok. Again, I've shared a few thoughts, and I'm sure people get benefit from it and they learn. And I know there's people who monetize, their way of living. They can, whatever they produce for videos, and they get the likes and everything.
They don't produce shit; they sell junk.
There you go.
Yeah.
But, it's just one of those things that if you allow the federal government once again to do blank, what does that mean for the next time? And it's always, again, just more control, more power grab, and that's the scary part that I don't like. So for that reason, like I say, I would say no. Despite all the reasons I don't like TikTok, I still would say just leave it alone.
Right.
But for that alone, but yeah, it's unfortunate. And the other thing too is I always wonder, even in just when these, the vote came in, like say 80% or whatever, passed it, maybe it was more than 80%. And right now I think to myself, is it something in it for them? Like, why would they all jump? Like, you never get it. You never get this kind of unanimous kind of vote on anything. I think to myself, are they somebody looking to monetize and get rich off it themselves in government? I mean, clearly.
I think it was all the Israel thing that really prompted it.
Okay.
And
again, me just being devil's advocate, I guess, and the devil's got a whole lot of
advocates. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we can move on from that topic because I'm sure this topic's going to last quite some time. Even the bill itself, as it's written right now, they have 6 months to divest, and then they don't even know what that means after that. So
divest.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And to whom, what country can't host it? There's only like 4 blacklisted countries right now.
Oh, really?
I think within the bill, I think it mentions, like China, Iran, and then 2 others. I don't know who they are, but I think they specifically call out a couple. But what else is going on in the news, Tim?
Man, there is so much going on in the news. Even today, when I was reading through a lot of the different stories that are happening right now, and kind of sticking to more of the serious stuff. I mean, we could talk about funny things like, I don't know. Oh boy, there's a whole bunch of funny things. But Well, I mean, you've got the Attorney General in, is it Missouri, about that girl that was beaten
Are you
by
talking about the?
by a group of students where they kept bashing her head into the concrete.
Yeah, what do you know about that?
Very little, actually. And the reason I know very little about it is because just the thought of it alone is beyond disturbing. And unfortunately, there's just people in society who resort to violence right away, and that's just what they do. They take it out on others, and you got somebody who's either going to not make it, or if they do make it alive, they're probably going to have a very different life because they're going to be severely, brain damaged or what have
So
you.
tell us a story.
I truly don't even know all the details because I've read such little about it. It's just that disturbing.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well,
and I maybe bringing it up is poor timing only because I don't know much of it.
Yeah.
But clearly, you've got a group of students that decided to beat up a helpless student, female in this case, and she is now fighting for her life in a hospital. And the Attorney General is now taking a hard look at the school because apparently there is a track record now that has shown lack of, let's just say, discipline and authority over the last number of years.
Kind of resembles the federal government, or even states.
Yeah, so they're looking at the Missouri AG opens investigation into school district's DEI promotion after teen's brutal beating.
What does it have to do with DEI?
Well, again, probably a little more education on either of our parts, to read more about this. But it's the current situation is bleak for this one student.
So was it a group of black girls and a white girl that got beat up? Was it a group of white girls and a black girl that got beat up? What was it? Was it a race?
I am of the understanding that this was a group of black girls who did beat up a white girl, I believe, but again, I don't want to be fully quoted on that.
Yeah, dude. So I have X and Facebook and all the social platforms. I don't really go on Instagram that much, but I do have it. But anyways, I don't know if it's the people that I follow or if it's what I watch or whatever it is. The algorithm on Twitter, I see a lot of groups of young black individuals beating up white individuals right now. Those videos are heavy on Twitter. And I don't know, again, maybe it's just the people I follow and my For You page and that kind of stuff. But I mean, there was one just the other day on St. Patrick's Day where there was a guy in, I think it was Boston, where they showed just a group of like 3 or 4 black dudes beat the fuck out of this white guy, threw him down a hill. He hit his head on a concrete slab. And then there's another guy right next to him, I think it was a white guy, that was just standing there like laughing and pointing at him. But these videos are disturbing, man. Just absolutely disturbing. Like, is this new to us, or is this just now everyone's finally recording absolutely everything so everyone gets to see it the next day? What do you think?
Boy, sensitive topics, man.
Yeah.
And myself, I gotta watch some of the words I say, considering there's gonna be a public viewing.
Nobody viewing this.
But if it goes up on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I have to think on that response.
Well, let's change course.
I'd have to think on that one.
Right, because I would agree for a first run at this podcast, our first take, I called it, for the episode. It's getting pretty deep right there, and we probably both don't know enough to comment on this Missouri case and what we probably should. Let's switch topics. Let's talk about New York. Have you been seeing what's going on in New York in the Trump trial right now?
Oh my goodness. Poor guy needs like $500 million.
So he has he has 4 days to come up with this.
And what is it that I read? Basically, this is what's the verbiage that's used? Because clearly the amount of money, the time period he's allowed to come up with it,
right?
it's just not possible.
Right.
You're basically
No one's going to give you a bail bond for $500 million.
no, $454 to be exact.
Right. And I was watching some clip on TV, and it had Trump talking, and I think it's like the Eighth Amendment that he was reciting that had, like cruel penalties and unjust penalties. Right? It's against that,
Yeah.
and I just thought, yeah, show me one time in history ever where someone was committed of a crime that had essentially no victims, not even monetarily.
That's right.
And is hit with $454 million as a bond, as bail.
It actually seems comical.
Did you see Kevin O'Leary on
Literally,
TV?
it's comical.
Yeah, I agree. Did you see Kevin O'Leary on TV?
I did not. No.
Oh, just fuming, talking about this to reporters. And just how it's saying, like, if there's anything that America is good for, it's, land and the ability to essentially protect your land and it be your land or your property, right? And the minute that the government can start seizing different land and different properties from you for things as ridiculous as this, it throws the entire system off. And investors are not going to want to invest because they have so much risk. If the government can just take over something, et cetera, et cetera. This is a snowball effect type thing. So he was just going off on this reporter. I think it was on like CNN or something. It was just crazy. I never saw Kevin O'Leary go off that much.
I mean, the whole idea of that much money and trying to post bond for it, and given the short period of time, I mean, everything about it is just silly. And it's done by design yet again to basically checkmate Trump.
It's a kangaroo court, man.
It's so. I mean, and what is someone to do? I mean, he can't liquidate fast enough. He couldn't even get that kind of money as a call it collateralized.
You would.
Big commercial real estate. They wouldn't even do. Nobody would.
Wouldn't you think there'd be some bank that would want to profit off this and come in and be like, we're supporting Trump and we're going to put up $500 million for him?
Yeah, again, it's like it goes back to the collateralized piece. People debated really how much is the guy actually worth, and how much real estate does he really have, and what is it all valued at, whatever. If you're looking at something like that and someone's aiming to profit, they're not looking to profit 10 or 20%. They're looking to get 3x or something off.
Right.
Right. And does he have enough in brick and mortar, among other assets, to support that kind of a bond?
Oh, I'm sure
it takes a risk. I mean, I would guess yes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the exact details of his finances either. Nor does probably anyone. But
No.
But I would have to assume that of everything Trump and the Trump family has, because this is not against just Trump, it's against his two sons, the family, etc. But I would guess they have way more than $500 million worth of things. Even, all of their properties combined. You're talking New York, Chicago, Florida, Vegas, right, etc. But they were also saying that, it's Letitia. Is that who it is?
Yes.
She's the AG over there, right?
Correct.
And she was saying that if he doesn't come up with it within these 4 days, they will start to look at seizures.
Correct.
And then the problem becomes, well, these are entities that are owned by several people, not just Trump.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start seizing other people's properties to go through this. This is the most ridiculous thing ever.
Everything about it is. And it's all by design. And I'm trying to remember. I could be off on this one. It might have been Stalin. Forgive me if I'm off on my history on this one. Was find me the man and I'll find you the crime.
Right.
Basically, like you could take you or me, I'm sure we have somehow committed something unlawful. And if they dug deep enough, they'd find some nuance, something deep in the haystack. Well, technically you did this.
I probably broke 10 laws today.
Probably, I mean, maybe I doubled that. Who knows? But I certainly didn't stop at some stop signs. That's for darn sure. They said, rolling stops. Those are illegal. But that's just it. They're taking him, and it's a tar and feather job. Dragging him out, parade it. Media obviously latches on because they're like sheep. And of course, they're going to keep parroting the same things, the same talking points, nothing novel or creative about what they come up with. And it's just MAGA this, MAGA that. But end of day, you've got a guy who, regardless of his name, his title, whatever the case may be, he is an American citizen, right? Just take that for what it is, face value. And as an American citizen, they're literally putting him through the ringer because they can. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem because they could do it to you, to me, to anybody. But they're, of course, they go after political opponents and people that pose a threat for, they deem a threat. And in this instance, they're going to take as much away from him as they possibly can, and they're doing their absolute best to basically put out what is the Trump brand. And there's a lot of people who have latched on to that brand because they look at him as somebody who, I don't say he walks on water, but when it comes to saving the country from probably some real downfall, at least in the near term, he's got the ability to probably do that, and a lot of people believe him.
Are you a conspiracy theorist at all?
Big time.
Are you a
I
deep
don't even
state?
think we landed on the moon.
Yeah, is that right? Really?
Legit.
Oh, that's
like, there's a lot of things I don't believe. If the government, look, the federal government put out a stupid food pyramid about 50 years ago, and it's one of the dumbest things that anybody could have ever followed. And that's the food. They can't even get that right. They can't run the post office. It runs in the red every single year. Okay, you look at how from taxation to debt to IRS to our DOJ, our FBI, and any other acronym in between that's sitting between the Pentagon and Capitol Hill. And I'm telling you right now, it is without a doubt one of the worst woven webs that exists. You want www? There it is, worst woven web.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast.
Because it is wrought with absolute garbage from top to bottom, and there's so many people that are in on the gig. That's the whole deal.
So I'll throw this out there because I've been thinking about this. A lot of people tend to think that there's Trump's going against the deep state. That's why he's getting tar and feathered as much as possible, like you're saying, right? But have you ever thought that maybe it's a layer deeper and Trump is really almost in on this, and this is all just a charade?
Believe it or not, things have crossed my mind on, is this all just one giant ruse?
Right.
Is it really just a scam at the end of the day?
And divisions, division within the country.
It has crossed my mind. It wouldn't surprise me. I know for longest time people talk about New World Order, Illuminati, and all these other kinds of things that float around, and you got these nefarious characters, deep governments around the globe. It's not just the dignitaries; those are the faces. It's the people behind the dignitary, or the people, I should say, that are really running things, and it's almost like the Rothschild type stuff.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often wondered. And I don't think Trump's in on anything. I really don't. I think he genuinely wants, prosperity for people, etc. And of course, there'd be a lot of people in line picketing and telling me I'm, terrible. I'm the devil for saying that. But there is so many layers, like you say, within government, and it has existed not just in American history, but when you look back, the kings and queens of Europe. You look back at the origins of slavery. You look back at Eastern cultures. You can go back after one dynasty to the next, one empire to the next, and it has been nothing but small pool of people at the top that control the show, and everybody kind of just gets screwed.
Yeah, it almost seems like this is the perfect show, the perfect presentation to keep the entire country talking about things and listening and hearing and putting themselves in a state where this is what they're thinking about the presidency and how screwed this guy is getting, or how much he should be getting more of, whatever side that you're on, whatever it is. You're so deep into it, and you this is where your attention is going rather than going to the places that it should be going, like what's happening in your local politics,
Boom.
what's happening at your kid's school,
Bingo.
what's happening down the block, what's happening in the city next to you, right? Instead, we're all
Community.
right, your community,
Local community.
right? It's like everyone is so focused on these major topics that to me it almost just seems like a smokescreen. Like they just, that's where they want us to focus our attention. That's where everyone is
These are not
focusing
the
their
droids you're
attention.
looking for.
Yeah, right. And I don't know. Maybe Trump really is, just that guy that wants everyone to do well. And I mean, I look at Trump honestly, and I think the guy's kind of and maybe he is very, very intelligent in his own way, but I look at him and just think this guy's kind of a moron, right?
He's probably
he's
not
funny.
he big comedy showman,
right?
Branding, right? There's aspects to him, like I'm not a big fan when he goes up there and he basically takes Nikki Haley's name and drags it through the mud. She loses. She's a loser. Just say, you know what?
Same thing with DeSantis, man.
Yeah, it's like just and the same thing.
Like the best governor in the country right now, and he's dragging him through the mud.
Exactly, and for what? There's nobody wins if you ask me in that regard.
Right.
You're better off at least olive branch, little diplomacy in that regard.
But
right?
that's what makes Trump Trump, though.
I know, and it's also it is an attractive quality in many ways, and some people might think that's twisted, but when you look at the way, again, how government in general, regardless of present and even past, have functioned, especially in the last 2 decades, it's a breath of fresh air. And I know I mentioned Ross Perot early on. That was my first little dip into politics. I remember very well, actually, 1992. And that was something where you had George Bush, who should have been an easy slide and should have gotten certainly the presidency for one more term. Sadly, he did not garner enough votes. Ross Perot was sort of a spoiler for him in that way. But outside of Ross Perot, and I'll get to one more thing on him in a minute, but you also have the watch moment. And for those that can look back at old videos, you got George Bush, and it's always a second debate, the little town hall one. You got maybe 30 people in the crowd, and it's more intimate, and the candidates go walking up to the people and they talk, And Bill Clinton was very charismatic, engaging, eye contact, and you got Papa George looking at his watch, like he's bored, he's not engaged. And of course, the whole no new taxes, well, that was a bomb. And then you had the savings and loan crisis that also hit. That didn't help. And then you get this guy Ross Perot, who people made fun of. People thought he was so dumb and like goofy. He's got the big ears. He's a tiny guy. He had his pie charts and his graphs and talking about trend lines with national debts and deficits. And people thought this guy is nuts. He's talking trillions and like people at the time thought this was just big puffy numbers. Like, where's he coming up with this math? This is silly, right? He was dead on.
No.
Like Ross Perot was decades ahead of his time. And I'm not saying everything he said was perfectly accurate, but the guy, for the most part, hit it right on the head. He knew exactly where things were going with federal government, its spending problems, the taxation issues, deficits and debts, among other factors. And he packaged it in a way that I thought people could understand, and in maybe not so much a way relatable, but they would recognize it, because we often hear politicians, they speak in platitudes and they bloviate and they go on and on, kind of like I'm doing right now. But what they do is they have, they'll talk the big debt, right? The big debt, and they'll talk about deficits, and they talk about got to keep the government open. We got to keep the government open and keep it running and funded for another 3 months, etc. This doesn't resonate with people. People can't fathom,
trillions,
or what any of this stuff means. Somehow Perot, in his own roundabout way, was able to package it, convey it, and people understood it. And people, they got spooked, and rightfully so, because look at where things are at now, and it's not any better; it's worse.
No, I think Ron Paul did a little bit of the same when he was out. He was like a doom and gloom guy. And kind of some of the same reasons, and people, they get spooked by that. They get turned off a little bit.
Totally.
But I don't remember that at all. I was 8 years old in '92, man. I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
So I'll be 43 in August. So I
43.
was
Right on.
11-ish at
Yeah.
the time. But I remember because it was also a big deal in our middle school.
Oh, really?
Who are you going to vote for type thing. It was more for fun.
Yeah.
But people paid attention to what Ross Perot was doing, and again, he had a very different style, and his approach, albeit kind of quirky, it made sense. And that's what I think a lot of people liked about him, not to mention he was very fiscally just shrewd, conservative. It was about reining in government spending, basically putting the tightest leash that you could on any aspect of the federal government and severing the wasted money. And the sad thing is, it's your and my money.
Right.
The government's got no money. It's ours.
Right.
And they're mortgaging our kids' debts and their children's debts, and it just goes down the line.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that conversation because anytime I talk about taxes, I just get pissed off. Especially, I'm a business owner, right? And having to write a check at the end of the year, actually sit down and write a check, it is crazy to think how much money that we're giving the government. It's crazy to think how many people in the country actually don't pay any taxes.
Exactly.
Compared to those of us that do. Because I don't know I think it's somewhere around like 30% of the population pays for the majority.
Was it in the top few percent pay for, I don't know, it's like 60% of the taxes, whatever the top 2%, I forget.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people can run through the statistics all day. There again goes another example, and it's always the whole pay your fair share, which is a horrible mantra. People buy into
it's horse shit.
It is, and people buy into it because, it makes them feel good, and stick it to the rich guy, Here's the deal, people with money will usually always have money.
Right.
And people who have money don't have it sitting in just piles of cash. It's in assets. It's in appreciable, vehicles, if you will, not physically vehicles that you drive, but for those out there, get what I'm saying. It's in something that's making them money, and it's not necessarily in a taxable account. They might be tax deferred.
It's not income earned
Exactly,
yearly.
it's not earned income. Earned income, yeah, you get hosed.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. And the money that the government takes, which it's just confiscation of wealth. That's all.
It really is.
It's completely it's confiscation of wealth. It's a legalized robbery that they're allowed to have. And it's been going on for far too long. People have had enough. And people are also just so sick and tired of watching their dollars get flushed away, not to mention, how many of our dollars land in the hands of foreign countries through aid and other. And it's not to say we shouldn't help. It's, again, caution on that. I'm going to put the disclaimer out there. But our country needs help first.
Yeah.
Like, we need help first. And people need financial relief in every possible
so you're all for going and giving $80 billion more for Ukraine, I hear. Is that right?
Listen, there's another sticky situation, but I also wonder, why has Zelensky got a $40 million mansion sitting in Miami? I'd love to be on Biscayne Bay right now with my Donzi cigarette butt.
I didn't even know that he did.
I believe he does. Again, I could be dead wrong on this one, but you've got, again, it's the dignitaries, it's the people. It's like, the people of our country, they're the oppressed and the violence and this and that. Meanwhile, you're living very, very well.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, what's with the aid? I don't get it. And who's really getting the money?
Yeah.
Case in point. Keep touching the plane here. Case in point. There's a lot of profit in nonprofit, and it's not to go on a wild tangent about this, but I kind of draw a parallel between that and aid to other countries, because how much actually lands in the hands of the people that need it? And when you look at even nonprofits, there's a lot of nonprofits who have CEOs making $1 million a year.
Oh, for sure.
So wait a minute, I'm not following this. You're like, wait a minute, I thought you were nonprofit. That as an outsider, the intent, or at least the belief, is if I give you $1, that dollar is going to really go help somebody in full. $1.
Sure.
Not 18 cents.
Yeah.
Because the other 82 got to pay for whatever fill in the blank.
Right. Yeah, my father-in-law is like, completely against Goodwill for that very reason alone, right? And they used to have, they probably still do have their CEOs making millions of dollars a year, right?
Yeah.
Which
Red Cross, I think, is no different.
Right, which is just
others.
Ridiculous. I mean, there should be some kind of cap on that. However, I will say that if you become a very large organization like a Goodwill or like the Red Cross, whatever it may be, and you need a CEO and a good CEO, CEOs are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Right, so you're going to pay something. So, I mean, if the CEO for Goodwill makes $1 million, maybe that's money well spent.
Could very well be.
How much of a dollar of every dollar is going to the actual person? I don't know. I know they do other things for other people as well, like employment, but very good topic, something that people don't look into as much. But I know it throws a lot of people off from even wanting to donate.
Oh, completely. It's turned me off for years.
Yeah.
It's almost the equivalent of having to tip everybody now.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a tip.
Yeah.
You scooped some ice cream into my cup.
What was the worst tip that you've given in like the last year? Can you think of one? Like, or what someone wanted a tip for?
It probably was legitimately. I had to travel down to Florida for some work. There's an ice cream place that I always just go to and frequent, and it's sort of like you feel guilty a little bit if you don't. So, yeah, tip the $1 or the $2 on it. I'm thinking to myself, all you did was put literally the ice cream on my cone, and that's what you're supposed to do. I suppose if I could go back behind the counter, I could take care of it myself and not have to pay the $2, or at least feel obligated to.
I got pissed when Uber started putting tips on the app, man. Like when Uber first started, that was one of the whole things of Uber. It was like, here's your app, here's your ride, here's exactly how much it costs. You don't have to tip, you don't have to do anything. That's Uber, and then. Obviously it got huge, and then they have so many drivers, and the drivers are complaining they're not making enough money, and why can't people tip us? And then they put tips in there. So now every time I get an Uber ride, I get a notification, 2 hours later saying, "How was your ride? And do you want to tip your driver?" And I'm just like, nope. Like, I'm not tipping Uber drivers, man.
No tips. So when I travel, fortunately, everything that I do, my expenses are covered in full. I always do tip an Uber driver. I've always been under the impression it's kind of like a taxi. You give them a couple bucks.
That's not how Uber started, though. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
So I just learned something.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Boy, I haven't. When is the first time I probably used an Uber? This might even be laughable. Truth, I think it was 2018 or 19.
The first time you used it?
Yeah, first time I used Uber. So I don't know if tips were standard back then. I know I didn't pick up the tab or the couple tabs. I was in California at the time when I was in San Jose, to be exact.
Yeah.
By the way, stepping over homeless people as we walked to the restaurants.
Nasty.
Yeah. It's remarkable because you'd have the door or the entryway to the restaurant, nice as it would be. You got the sidewalk, and just on the edge of the sidewalk, you'd have literally homeless people.
Yeah.
And all strung out, and where they've been huffing all day, or they got needles and stuff. I mean, you just think to yourself, this is America. It kind of goes back to what we were just talking about a little bit ago, even in some ways. But that's America for you.
Yeah, ship that $80 billion to Ukraine and let our homeless people just sit on the streets smoking crack and killing themselves.
It's mind-boggling. It really, really is. It really, I mean, when you look at how money is just pilfered and wasted, and what could be done to really maybe correct problems or at least clean up communities, streets, among so many other aspects. And I mean, I was just in Baltimore, for goodness sakes, just a couple weeks ago. And my travels take me all over, all different cities. And some are really, really nice. And, I've seen some not so nice places, but Baltimore, I got to tell you, that state, that city, poof. As nice as the lobster rolls are, and then the crab cakes, and yeah, you've got some pockets around Baltimore that are beautiful, but boy, that's a rough town.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, how can this be America? Like, literally, how? With all the wealth, with all the education, with all the resources, that you go down the whole laundry list, and this is what exists. And you got people, they're living in squalor.
Dude, I was in Denver right around Thanksgiving time, and I could not believe the amount of homeless people in Denver.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been to Denver in the past. I felt like I've never seen that in Denver. That Denver was always like, the place the rich go to go skiing and all this kind of stuff. And it's 10 cities down in Denver. I was like, holy shit, this is nasty. And I mean, like,
It's rough.
just right downtown, everywhere,
Yeah.
just everywhere. Crazy. I mean, I stayed at a really super nice Airbnb down there. I was just minutes from the downtown area at this convention center. I took a walk to a coffee shop to get out of the Airbnb, and like, I was talking to my wife on the phone and passing tense, going like,
Yeah.
I don't even feel safe walking to a coffee shop in downtown Denver right now.
So, I was going to ask, you didn't tip any Uber drivers out there, did you?
Fuck
No,
no.
probably
Fuck
not.
no.
So it's funny, a colleague of my former colleague of mine, shall rename nameless, I mentioned the person's name, but he was in San Francisco at a conference back in, this was 2019, and he calls me from San Francisco, and he's like, Tim, you're not going to believe what I just witnessed. And I'm like, tell me, what? Because I knew he was there. And I figured it had something to do with just getting people on the streets. Right away my mind went to it because San Francisco has got such a huge problem. He says, Tim, I'm literally still numb to what just happened. He came out of a Starbucks, and as soon as he exited, he's got his cup of coffee, he said, and there was a homeless man staring at him from about 10 feet away. And he didn't know if this guy was going to do something to him, so he just stared right back.
Yeah.
The homeless man proceeded to pull his pants down and squat right in front of my former colleague and lay a loaf on the concrete
Jeez.
while he stared at him. And he's like, Tim, he says, Tim, I literally froze. I didn't know what to do. You just, what do you, how do you react to that? Where do you go?
Right.
What do you do? He's right in front of my walkway. And I mean, as messed up as the story is, comedy too, it's also really just sad. I mean,
It is
this
sad.
is, you got people doing this.
It's disgusting.
It's filthy.
It's sad, it's disgusting, and it's essentially from Democratic policies.
Oh, completely. I mean, you look at the policies, and like again, out in Maryland, they got a governor, Westmore, I think his name is. Great slogan, by the way. More for Maryland.
There you go,
I
Westmore.
give him credit. Like that's clean. I can see how people be like, yeah, more for Maryland.
That's nice.
But you got Hogan now running in one of those districts, former Republican, who might be taking over a Democrat Senate seat.
Hulk Hogan?
No.
Which Hogan are you talking about?
I
was like, Hogan's running for an office?
Oh, I have to pull it up, the details on it. But I'm telling you, you look at the Democratic policies in any major metropolitan city, certainly the blue states, and you can pick it apart from not just governorship, but local mayors, aldermen, common council, the people in charge of the treasuries. It is just, it is almost unbreakable, the liberal stronghold that exists. Take your pick: Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, Houston, LA. I go down the list, and you have failing public schools. You have crime that's running rampant. You have local DAs that don't want to enforce laws because they want to go soft on crime, right?
Yeah, I mean, all for the reason of too many people in our prisons.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. But aren't prisons there to help correct the problem?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to this other podcast today, and this.
The prisons.
Well, that's a good question.
I've always wondered who does.
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know if the majority of them are public and some are private. If it's a mix, if it's all private.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's always been those conspiracy, or not even conspiracies, but truths out there about how much these prisons are profiting, right? But who actually owns them, I have no idea. That's a good good rabbit hole to probably dive down into one day.
Yes, Larry Hogan.
Larry Hogan, okay.
Maryland Senate race.
Larry Hulk Hogan.
And he leads by a wide margin over Trone. I forgot the guy's first name.
Trone. That's his name.
Not Tron, but Trone, yeah.
Oh.
I have to look it up again who the guy is, but I was reading more about that earlier this week even. And yeah, because he's a former Maryland governor, but now he's running for Senate.
Okay.
So this Westmore guy is the new current governor. He's a very well decorated Army vet, or at least armed services and some other, academia and so forth. He's kind of like picture perfect on paper.
Yeah.
But he's a Democrat. Westmore is. Anyways.
Did you see the story in the news just recently about the squatter in New York and how the homeowner got arrested?
Yes. Yeah, that's another. It's amazing, isn't it? You'd think that this is a Twilight Zone. Like, how is this possible?
It's so completely backwards.
It doesn't
So
make me want to leave my house. I just want to stay in my house all day now.
right. So for the people watching that might not know about this story, right? So there's this woman. She is passed down a home from her family, from her mother, I believe.
Bequeathed.
Right? And she's not living in it, but it ends up being that 2 or 3 squatters go into the home, start living in that home. The woman comes back to claim her home, only to find out that these squatters are living there. The police are called. The police then ask the squatters, well, how long have you been there? One of them says, well, I've only been here like a week. And the other one says, well, I've been here quite some time and I'm paying rent and this type of thing. And the woman is told that she shouldn't do anything about it. And ultimately, they got both of the squatters to leave, but the police that were there enforcing whatever law it is that they're enforcing had stated, if you lock the doors, if you change the locks on the doors, you're going to get arrested for not allow this guy to come back who is apparently paying rent here. And so the squatters leave. The woman's there. She ends up changing the locks on the doors. The squatter comes back. The locks are changed, calls the police. The police come. I think this is the way the story went. And the police ended up arresting the woman who owns the home over the squatter. And then what I just heard about today is that a group of neighbors or vigilantes went there.
Yeah.
Did you see that? And they went there and they basically told the guy, you know,
they found a remedy.
right. Through
somehow no legal recourse, you find your own homemade remedy.
Isn't that what's going to start happening pretty soon?
I was just going to say vigilantism. I will not be surprised.
It's like living in a Batman movie.
Completely. Literally, I am not going to be surprised. And I think, we've already touched on this even prior to this podcast, but this is early in the stages. I think first inning type stuff. We haven't seen anything like what we're probably going to witness in the coming years, as sad as it may be. And I hope it doesn't get that way. It's not that I'm promoting it or want that to be the case. But you have tens of millions of Americans that are basically kind of against tens of millions of other Americans. And does it get to a point where you get watershed or sentinel moments where people just take things into their own hands? And I do believe that's going to happen. We see off instances of it with, somebody might be in the process of being robbed or broken into their home. And sure, a homeowner turns, the firearm the other way to neutralize the situation, let's just say. And that's a good day if you ask me. But I'm talking in the streets. I'm talking something that's going to be far more, let's just say, routine and in the public eye.
Hey man, I'll say this. We have a neighbor right next to me that is rarely at her residence.
I thought of that.
If there is a squatter that comes there, yeah, I know, right? If there is a squatter that would come and live in that house and the same situation would occur, and she would come home one day and get arrested for changing her locks, I would absolutely be that vigilante going over there and saying, buddy, you're either out of here or you're going to have a broken fucking leg.
Choice,
right.
Right. That's going to be it.
That's it.
This is not your home.
Right. Get out.
It's remarkable that the laws, again, and it seems to have only been in recent, I don't know, the last 2 years, 3 years that this is kind of popping up, where people have exposed the squatter laws.
Well, there was just this guy that was on a video. It was a Venezuelan guy down in, I think it was Texas. It was this video on X that's going around of saying like, you guys should all come here. We're just, we can just go into these houses, grab the houses if no one's there, fix them up. You can even sell them if you want to. And it's like, holy shit, there's people promoting doing this online.
He's got 500,000 followers.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy. And he's saying, yeah, the African guys that hang out with, they all do this already. They've done it to 7 different homes now.
Mm-hmm.
This is all in Spanish, but it was translated. But it was, oh my God!
Basically promoting, and here's your path to seizing somebody's home.
Here's how you do it for all you 10 million illegal immigrants coming across the border.
Which is just messed up. Now, I don't know about Wisconsin. I don't know if we have, I guess you could say, loopholes or some sort of sliver of where they can wedge the argument.
I don't know.
Right? I have no idea. It seems to always be in these more liberal run or liberal leaning type states where this exists. And maybe again, you got the soft on crime DAs and governorship and everybody from the top down that just, things happen, right? And they turn a blind eye, but I don't know how it is here in Wisconsin. I haven't heard any here yet.
Yeah, I don't know what our laws are. I haven't heard anything yet either. I haven't seen that much actual in terms of, all the illegal immigration going on right now. I really haven't seen it with my own eyes yet here.
Well, so I go to O'Hare.
Yeah.
For all my flights, and I'm in and out of that airport a lot. And there are quite a few illegals that are basically housed in and around the airport. They have near where the tram and the buses by the international side and one of the other terminals. From what little bit I've seen, because I'm always going domestic flights, but from the little bit that I've seen, and from what I know from other individuals who are on that end of the airport more routinely than I am, on a given day, 200 to 300.
Really?
And they're just camped out inside, and they're waiting to get picked up, bus somewhere else, whatever the case may be. So that's just maybe, it's an N of one, it's a microcosm, but that's just 90 minutes from here, not even.
Right.
And you've got however many per day that are running through, and even their mayor right now is, I think, busting at the seams because there's no money. Illinois is broke; it has been broke forever. But whether it's the financial, whether it's the capacity, physical residence to put people in, there's just no room. There's not enough resources.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we hear, even like in our local community, start to see something. I really wonder if that'll happen soon.
That's what I'm thinking, because we live in a very quiet, peaceful area. I think we're 5 minutes from, you could argue, commerce and civilization in one direction. You go 5 minutes the other direction, it's basically farm.
Right.
There's nothing out in Big Bend. I mean, it's quiet. I mean, it's like Mayberry. But do we start to see any sort of aspect of this trickle in? Near term, long term, who knows? But it is a concern.
Yeah.
It should, because this is a very safe community. And again, you talk about vigilantism and people taking matters into their own hands. The residents of New Berlin probably don't want it. Number one. Number two, you get one instance of crime that would be related to an immigrant that's not supposed to be here, and I don't know. There's a lot of gun owners around here, man. That's all I'm going to say. It just takes one person to say, you know what, we've had enough.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened more already with the numbers that we're hearing about.
That's the thing. I mean, when does that eventually happen? Because I think at some point you're going to see some group, could be one, could be a million, I don't know. People are going to just say they've had enough.
Right.
I mean, eventually you hit a boiling point and you're fed up, and you decide to just take matters into your own hands.
Yeah, and if the people that are supposed to be protecting you are doing the opposite, who is there? The rise of the mafia, right?
Mm-hmm. Completely. Yeah. I mean, do you carry wherever you go?
No.
You don't?
No. I used to for a little while, but I drink, and that's the hard thing. So, if you have a drink somewhere and you're carrying, you're illegally carrying.
Understood, yeah.
So, from that perspective, I know a lot of people always carry in their car and that kind of thing. And even say for me, I mean, if I'm out and I have a gun in my car and all of a sudden I stop somewhere and just randomly have a drink, I mean, then I'm doing it illegally. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to risk something like that. And so I just don't carry. I carry a knife, like a pocket knife most of the time, which I'm fine defending myself with.
Not when you're crocodile done.
No, nothing like that. I'm not slashing. No. But I used to carry just because I liked it. I like having the ability to carry. I do have a concealed carry permit. And I have plenty of guns I could carry, but I honestly, I don't really see the need to, but I know there's always those people that are like, well, the day you need it, you wish you would have it, right? Which, okay, fair enough. But no, I do not carry. I do not really feel a need to, and I don't want to break laws.
There you go, man. Doesn't want to break laws. Even though you said earlier you probably broke 10 laws today,
I'm
right?
sure I did. I'm sure I did. And that, it happens. Who doesn't?
Yeah, concealed carry. I've had my license for pretty much since we were allowed to.
It started. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
I think we're still an open carry state though too.
And that's the thing is, what's I guess almost what's the difference? But yeah, as for concealed carry, always got the 9 milli P365 6 hour.
Do you carry it normally around?
Oh yes,
you do.
Yeah, even at the dinner table.
Really? Do you have it on you right now?
In case the wife and kids get out of hand. No, I don't. No, I do carry regularly, believe it or not. Very, very rarely do I not have it with me.
Mm.
So it is something that always sticks around, literally right inside the waistband. It's sort of my safety net. I'm not looking to play hero. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'd have to. But certainly, push comes to shove, I'd rather have at least a chance.
And that's the argument.
To save myself or somebody else.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, you don't bring a gun to a knife, or you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? And you don't want to be empty-handed. I think at the bare minimum, at least citizens who are law-abiding and want to take the time, at least learn how to use a firearm. If you want to carry one, great. If you feel the need to have one in your house, whatever the case may be, be safe with it and so forth. And one thing I'll tell you is this: most people probably be all shook up. My wife got nervous about this when I brought my son into my office when he was about 6, maybe 7 years old. It was just a few years ago. I had 2 guns actually in my office that I was disassembling. I'd taken out the magazines, I'd unloaded them, and I just cleaned them out a little bit. And I brought my son in, and I completely took the mystery out of what a gun is.
Sure.
He likes Nerf guns and all that fun stuff, and of course Fortnite now, but completely took the mystery out of it. And he knows exactly where every gun is in the house. He's never once had an inquiry to want to go play or try. He's seen me carry it many a times. He doesn't get, like, oh, Dad, you got your. None of that. It's standard, right? And now that he's of age, I can take him to one of the local ranges, start shooting 22s, get comfortable. And I want to be able to do that just to, again, take more of the mystery out of it.
Yeah.
So that when it does come time where if he decides to ever have a gun of his own, it's not looked at as some sort of, I'm an action hero, number one. No, you're not. Number two, you're confident in how to use it properly and be respectful of what it's intended for.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm from like the old boys, right? Where I was shooting guns since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I had a BB gun when I was crazy small, and never had issues with guns. Just a gun, man. Just a gun. 2 years old. That's right. And now, like, my son's only 5 or almost 5, and like, I already was outside with him with a BB gun, just playing around with him and showing him it, and this is this, and it's like, I'm not afraid. You can't be afraid of these things. It's just like it's just like in Europe, how there is no drinking age, and you can have kids drink at any age, and then they end up not overusing it. Right? I mean, like, if you grow up with it and it's not some boogeyman type of thing, you get used to it, you respect it. It's a normal part of life.
2 things I told him on the upfront. I said, son, where do you think the safety on this gun is? Or where do you think the safety is in general? Where's the safety? He's looking at, and one of my guns, there is no safety.
Yeah.
That's that P365 that I carry. There's none. I said, son, the safety
in your head.
That's your first safety. I said, and when you grab a gun, everybody wants to right away put their finger on a trigger. Everybody, that's the first thing they do. You're right along the barrel. Put that finger right along the barrel. You don't ever put it on the trigger unless you're really ready to pull it. I said, that is safety. So that's the 2 things you get at least right from the bat. So it's funny because it was not long ago. I actually brought him. Oddly enough, he was back in my office, and I had my gun with me. And I said, son, pick up this gun. I just wanted to test him. He picked it up and he put it right away, finger right along the barrel.
Nice.
Nothing on the trigger.
Good for him.
Passed first test. Good boy.
Nice. Now shoot.
Now shoot. Elmer Fudd style.
Yes. Yes. All right, man. Cool. I think we should wrap it up for tonight. We're already almost at 2 hours. Holy shit.
Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun. This was actually a good time. I really enjoyed this, Tim.
This was fun stuff.
I don't know if we had a single viewer this entire time. I don't think we did. I've seen the single viewer the entire time. I think I've seen a 2 the entire time we've been sitting here. I haven't looked all that much, but I mean, it's obviously in front of us. But
so this goes on YouTube?
Well, it won't immediately. It will be there once I upload it. And I don't know if I'll upload this one or not. We can be the judge of that. I don't know if you care. But I don't know. Maybe we just keep this one to ourselves. Maybe we do a couple more just to get a little bit, more underneath us and get a little bit more comfortable. Although actually, I thought this one went incredibly well. But maybe I'll put it up and just see what kind of music it's, or maybe I can run through it and try to edit out some of the nice parts and just put out some clips.
You can do that too.
Yeah.
Just make sure you doctor it up. Put all like the doggy ears and the glitter faces.
Yeah, exactly. We need those. I'll put it all over TikTok too.
Make sure, you put some beats behind it in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
The remix version.
Cool. Well, we'll hit it for tonight, and maybe we do this like weekly.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm down for it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I say, at least once a week, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe more than that. I mean, like I said, it is my dream, so maybe the dream ends up being way more than once a week. Maybe some people actually like listening to us.
Teamwork makes a dream.
I doubt it.
That's corny as well.
I know. Like my 4-year-old saying that shit now.
That's that corporate lingo.
Yeah, I know. Fucking corporate assholes.
Just remember, collaboration, coordination, cross-pollination.
Oh, please, no. I never want to work for the man again.
No?
Never.
You hear that? You heard it first. He doesn't want to work for the man again.
Never, man. I mean, I probably end up Will at some point in my life. But who knows? I never want to, honestly. But we'll see. Thanks for coming.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
I got to walk home.
Roger that.
Yeah, Roger that is right, man.
Signing off.
All right. Oh.